This is Flowers on the Stage.
They can be dangerous labels, introvert and extrovert. I think that we can pigeonhole ourselves into becoming versions of ourselves that don't always support our most relational selves. Humans are spectacularly social creatures. And yet, when we begin labeling ourselves, it can make us more and more isolated and more lonely. And we are living in, the biggest pandemic of loneliness we've ever experienced in the history of humanity. So how I define, I mean, when I see those words, Carl Jung kind of concepted the terms introvert, extrovert. Introvert meaning I energize when I'm alone. I do better in small, one-on-one experiences, but I mostly fill up when I'm alone. Whereas an extrovert is someone who fills up and feels energized in company of others, right? In moments of connection. And what's interesting about the concept of introvert is that in order for you to be alone, think about the hundreds of people that it took for you to be by yourself in your house right now. You need the food in your fridge, the purveyors of the food in your fridge. You need the people who built your house. You need the people who put the clothes on your back. You need the people who put the iPods that you're wearing in your ear right now. I mean, for you to be alone, it's taken hundreds of people. I always say that being alone is a luxury, right? Think about in India, people live 10 in a household, 20 in a household all the time. So the concept of introvert and extrovert can feel very first world, and also doesn't allow for your entire human experience to be experienced. So I call it in my book, I call us all metaverts, that we are at a spectrum of introvert and extrovert, that we are all metaverts, that yes, you and I, Cam, might be more extroverted. I love people. And I also love being in my little cocoon at home, on my own, reading books and painting and being in my creative dreamscape, right? And so I really want to give us as humans the opportunity to be all of these things, not just one. And I think that that's one of the biggest problems with personal development in general, is that because there's so much money that's being made in the world of labeling. So I'm writing a book. Someone's writing a book on this new term they've created, X, Y, and Z. They're making money off that. And so there's a reason that you want to proliferate these terms and these labels, because it now gives you something to say or something to speak on, a pulpit to stand on. So I really feel, the more we just literally get rid of every label we've given to ourselves and allow ourselves to be quiet and extroverted, wild spirited, and also sweet and tender. It allows, let's allow ourselves to be social butterflies and also one-to-one deep connectors. I mean, we get to be all of those things, right? There are days I feel socially anxious. There's days I feel like I can talk to anyone, right? But, yes, maybe labels help us understand ourselves in some ways, but I think that when we take these labels to heart, they can also be dangerous. That's it.
Yeah, it's profound how the stories we tell ourselves they shape everything. And what can happen if you drop them? Easier said than done, but it's profound.
Yeah, there's a concept called self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm sure you've heard of this. This idea that when you say you're something, I'm an introvert, or the more you say you're something, the more you become that thing, right? A self-fulfilling prophecy, right? I am, whatever you want to say, like you want to call yourself whatever it is, you become that thing. And I think that we're just much more creative, much more interesting, much more curious, much more, um, yeah, just much more deep, and wide human beings.
Hmm,
Yeah.
I love it. Jump into the side a little bit. I'd love to hear what you would say has been the thing in your life that's been the greatest teacher for you.
I think for me, the thing that taught me the most was when I turned 30 years old and I looked myself in the mirror and I realized that I don't belong. And I realized that I didn't have friends with whom I could confide in. And that, the friends I did hang out with were mostly talking shit about each other or competing with each other or quietly hoping that they would fall on their face, living in New York City, in a cutthroat community. And so I remember on my 30th birthday, I really just felt this moment of this kind of universal understanding that belonging is the most powerful feeling as a human being, to both feel that exhale of I'm home, to feel the depth of the magic of our existence, and also the wings to help you fly and truly sort of find that purpose and be supported in that purpose that you have for yourself. And so I think that realization on my 30th birthday of really prioritizing my professional career and prioritizing my romantic partnerships over friendships was really that aha moment that changed my life. And I think as human beings, especially Americans, we tend to prioritize our careers and we write down all the things we're looking for, how much money we want to make, we like spend time writing our CV, and we do the same thing for our romantic partners. Like I want a lover who does this, and I want to have my hair petted, and I want to have date nights every week, and I want to be whisked away. Right? We write this for our romantic partner, but when do we ever write down what are the qualities we're looking for in our friends? What do we value in our friendships? What are the things that we're interested in our lives that we want to magnetize in friendships, right? We tend to stumble in friendships based on where they sit in proximity to our desk at work, how their lockers align with us at the gym, meeting somebody, somewhere randomly without really being intentional about them. So for me, the biggest teacher and the biggest lesson was becoming intentional about my community. And at 30 years old, writing down for the very first time, what qualities am I looking for in a friend, which I'd never done before. And from that moment on, I began magnetizing at rapid speed the most unbelievable, values aligned, juicy, kind of soul family aligned community members, because I just wrote it down. And as Mary Poppins always says, if you write it down and you say it 3 times, it happens. And I think that realization of reprioritizing friendship first over professional career and romantic interest, which then led me, by the way, my friends introduced me to the career of my dreams, and my friends introduced me to the love of my life, and from that reprioritization, you too can have that life change as well. So
that's so cool to hear. Like, I'm 27, so you were 30 years old taking a hard look in the mirror like that. Like, that's so relatable. And
yeah,
one thing like I take away from Belong and from you and what you're all about is just being the cause and not at the effect of things, like actually being the thing that makes things happen. Like, is that something that's always just been innate to you, or is that something you cultivated?
my Indian father, I'm an immigrant. My mother's from Japan. My father's from India. I'm born and raised in Montreal, Canada. My Indian father would always say, create, don't complain, Radha, create, don't complain. And I've always had that, my father and mother, they didn't know a single person coming to America, to Canada, where we grew up. So they made community of their own. My father started the Hindi school in the community. My mother started the Japanese school in the community. My mother found my soccer coaches. We created these birthday parties for our family, for my sister and I, that were super creative. And, they created the children's summer camp, the gifted children's summer camp, where we dissected pigs instead of, played capture the flag, And so I really have so much gratitude for my parents to have shown me that instead of complaining about why society wasn't showing up for them, and I came to America and why won't America show up for me, they created the life for themselves and the life for us, and built the community of their dreams and built the structures in their lives that supported them. And I watched that, and I learned from that. And so when I turned 30 and I saw that, I was like, wow, let me create a community of my own. And that's sort of the genesis of Daybreaker.
This is Flowers on the Stage, a podcast about being creative and finding success. To support it, please check out our sponsors, New Belgium Brewing, Thrax CBD, and Ticket Relief, the ticketing company that plants trees with a portion of each ticket sold. And now, back to the episode.
Can you talk to me about something that you believe now about life that you didn't believe when you were, in that like pre-30 era?
Oh, wow. Yes. That love takes no prisoners. That that falling in love, and that really, if you trust fall into love and into really letting yourself be seen by someone else and not protect your heart, that your empathy, your understanding of the entire human experience is so much more magnetizing and so much more magnifying, just so much more just all the things. It's just magnanimous, I guess is the word I want to say. Is just that life becomes, you feel the depths of sorrow in the most painful of ways, but you also feel the highest ecstasy in the most magical ways. And so I do believe, I didn't believe that love is the most important thing to really focus on and to really cultivate in our pursuit for purpose and our pursuit for financial abundance and our pursuit for all the things, right? But that actually you can have all the financial abundance in the world, you can have all the purpose in the world, but without deep, romantic, beautiful, juicy love that you allow in and that you give yourself to, that life is just not as meaningful. And so to start that cultivation as early as possible, to really become a student of love and pleasure and ecstasy and relational dynamics and rupture and repair, now early on, and not wait until it's too, not wait until, you're too old to change, quote unquote, but like to really just become a student of love. I would start that now. And I didn't know that the importance of love than I do now. I've always been a lover and a romantic, but the depth with which it could kind of raise your creative vibration, your intuition, your discipline, just all the areas of life, it's astonishing. Yeah.
Like, to remain uncalloused is it's like we're robbing ourselves from being
Yeah.
hardened, but it's so easy to just let life harden you. And, looking back on a hardened life, it's like, oh my gosh, I was missing it all.
Yes. Yeah, missing out, and also to harden as you get older. 27, you're still young, you're still moving through your Saturn return right now. You're just stepping into your Saturn return. I'm sure you know what that is. But if you don't, and for the listeners out there, your Saturn return is this moment between 27 and 30 where you're really just kind of becoming a man, becoming a woman, becoming getting to know the deepest versions of yourself, uncovering your deepest purpose, and it's a very rocky, very uncomfortable time, lots of turmoil. It could be lots of discomfort. It could be, and there's a lot of, if you allow the pain of this moment in your life to really sort of teach you, then you, on the other side of it, you're so much better off for it than all of those who try to control their way out of this moment in their life. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
If you don't mind me asking, do you ever feel fear or anxiety about your own death?
I used to a lot, and actually now with a 5-year-old daughter who I'm absolutely madly in love with, she's my greatest gift in my life. I definitely will say that death scares me more, just to miss her life and just to miss, the magic of watching her become the woman she will become. But no, I'm not afraid of death anymore. I really feel like I've done a few actual psychedelics that 5-MeO DMT. I don't know if can say that on air,
You're
but
good.
it's medicine, and a few different plant medicines, ayahuasca, mushrooms, to really get to know different parts of my brain. We only really know in this kind of human state, maybe we get to uncover 10% of our brain's capacity, and there's so much more magic and juice and other planes of existence that live beyond those realms in our minds and our brains. And so to carefully and safely and knowing where your source is, where you get your stuff from and who you do it with. But to be a psychonaut for me has been a deeply beautiful experience of no longer afraid of my mortality, because I'm infinite. My energy, my soul, my spirit is infinite. And even if this carcass, this meat suit that we live in no longer exists after 90 to 100 years, that my soul and my energy will for sure continue. Yeah.
I'd love to linger on that for a little bit. Like, let's say, there's people out there listening, for example, maybe like my younger cousin or something. They've not been able to have this kind of experience, and maybe their death literally does give them anxiety. Like, what would you say your takeaway was, and how you arrived at that takeaway that now kind of resolved those feelings for you?
Yeah, I think that for me, it's interesting. I think of suicide, for example. I think of someone who was so overwhelmed by their anxiety and by their fear to live, to move through the magic and beauty of the pain of this existence, and how scary it is to confront moments of pain and struggle, and that it'd be easier just off yourself, right, to find that kind of freedom. And to that I say, our souls, first of all, have come here to learn. Our souls have come here to learn, and our souls have come here to build upon our lineage, right? And so what am I here to do? I'm here to work on the consciousness upgrade from my own Indian lineage, my Indian and my Japanese side, and to really bring in a whole new consciousness upgrade in this lifetime with my current partner, with my daughter, with my community. And death is the ultimate consciousness upgrade at the end of your life, but you actually cut off. So two things, like at suicide, you cut off that consciousness upgrade if you just end your life early, right? So it's just like, if that's even on anyone's mind, just know that we are here for an upgrade, and the pain and the suffering is a beautiful part of that upgrade for you to recognize and step forward and lean into this new version of yourself and where your soul's mission and purpose is meant to go. And for those who are anxious and scared of death, death is the most beautiful portal. I entered the death portal, like I said, in these psychedelic experiences, and I went through. I died. I left my body, and I died. And it was a kaleidoscopic experience, and of light and color and magic and just pure love. And so what's beautiful is that we all know at the end of our life that we're going to experience pure love, that's there for us no matter what. So the trials and tribulations that we are moving through to get to the end of life, that's the juice, that's the magic, that's the upgrade, that's the potential. That's why you're here. So if you're just like, it's too hard, I'm out. And by the way, those souls who do that, it takes a lot of courage to do that. And I also feel like, wow, there's so much opportunity to lean into the pain, where the pain becomes the pleasure. And I think that was what I discovered the most in these experiences, and also sexual experiences. I'll say freely, is that when you find that Kundalini awakening, when you find a real moment where you feel an outer body experience. For me, at ecstasy, I was also sobbing for the pain of the Palestinian refugees and the Israeli, women at ecstasy, at the height of joy and pleasure and ecstasy and climax. I was also weeping. So it's like, actually, anxiety, if you really look closely at anxiety around death or anxiety around life or anxiety around anything in life, if you look really closely at it, there's a lot of joy and a lot of pleasure and a lot of beautiful learnings that will make you giggle inside of that anxiety, right? And so maybe the question is like, what are you anxious about? What is it that you're going to leave this amazing life? Is it the pain of death? Because I'll tell you right now that on the other side of life is this incredible, beautiful journey to energetic state, and it's kaleidoscopic and it's colorful and it's rainbows and it's magic. And so let's not be anxious about death. Let's be more curious about what's on the other side of these meat suits, but in a way that doesn't bring us anxiety, but more comfort, to know, in the knowing that our energy and our souls will continue.
I love that perspective shift. Thank you for sharing that.
Right.
Can you take me back to a younger version of you when you were starting out professionally, where you're going after these big dreams, creating Daybreaker, ultimately writing your book, touring with Oprah, and taking me back where you're just embarking on these dreams. How did you find the courage to really, really just dive in with all of this?
I think I have the answer, and it's always the same, I think, probably, but it's community. And I think for me, my community started in my mother's womb with my twin sister, Mickey, and she and I are best friends, and we're collaborators, and we're creative partners, and we built things together. We started it together. I want to give her credit. She built it. She grew it and was a CEO. But we start all these, so many ideas we create together, and always growing up having a buddy that's like, oh yes, lemonade stand with a sprinkle of cinnamon, like great idea. Like dog walking, like company where we give like cute fluffy collars, like any silly idea that we would have. I had a buddy championing that idea, or if she had an idea, I would champion her idea. And we were all just like, I call it in my book, I call it FYFs, fuck yeah friends. It's like, you want to surround yourself with fuck yeah friends, FYFs. It's a very what I call it, a very specific term, a very professional term in the community building world.
It'll be in the textbooks.
Yeah, it's right. And it's in my book, and I write about it, and it's so important to me, because if you surround yourself with shoulder shruggers and naysayers, or like jealous, people who don't want to see you succeed, I can always feel that energy. In fact, I've called out a friend. I called her one day and I said, hey, I want you to know that whenever you share a win with me, I cry tears of joy for you. And I really feel like your win is my win. I genuinely feel that way. And yet whenever I share a win with you, I feel a contraction in your heart, and I want to share that because I love you so much, and I want us to have a clear channel, but I do feel that you're not fully happy for me, and I just wanted to maybe check my assumptions, and maybe it's my own insecurity around sharing wins with close friends, but I wanted to share that came up for me. And she started crying, and she was like, you're right. I feel envious of your success. I'm not there yet. I'm still struggling to make ends meet. And we moved through it. And it was just like a beautiful uncovering. But I share that because to surround yourself with fuck yeah friends, surround yourself with people that champion you and that really feel like your win is their win, that they know, like in the show Entourage. I don't know if you saw the show Entourage, you're too young for it, but the show Entourage, where it's like the guy that makes it has all of his buddies live in the house and they drive the cars and they become his assistants, and they're like, it just takes one of the friend group that crushes it, that takes all the friends along with them. And I think that as long as we move away from this toxic individualism and these kind of like this kind of me society, and move into this more collective consciousness and kind of interconnected existence, then all of a sudden your win is my win. If your podcast crushes it and I'm your cousin, and I know that, you know, if you win, you're going to take me on a holiday, or you're going to buy me ice cream, or you're going to take me for dinner, of course I'm going to want you to win. I'm going to tell all my friends to listen to your podcast because I want you to win. And I know that the more people listen to your podcast, the more sponsors you get. The more sponsors you get, the more money and more abundant you are, and the more you can, you know, have more audience listening to you. So it's like, if we all thought that way, then it's the rising tide really lifts all boats. But it's because we're hoarding our resources, we're hoarding our money, we're looking at our bank account on a screen just going up, and nothing in your life's changing except maybe you have a nicer car, but you just have you're not sharing your wealth with anyone. It's just stagnant in this bank account. This is where, to me, society is really messing up. And I feel like the biggest lesson, the biggest support, the biggest life changer for me was to really recognize that and remember that from from a little embryo in my mother's womb to the adult and mother that I am today.
Mm-hmm. What would you say has been the most important lessons you've learned about what really, really is involved with being a great leader?
To not know all the answers, to really just invite, as a leader, we are guides, we are not the hero, right? And that's the key. We are guides. The leaders are the guides. We are not the heroes. We're not, I don't want to be the hero. I don't, the tall poppy gets cut down, right? Like that saying. So I really just want to be a supportive, loving guide. And to me, the best leaders are guides. They're not the heroes that you're looking up to. And I want to guide you, Cam. I want to guide all the listeners listening. I don't want to just look at me. These are all my accolades, how much money I've made. Like, that's not interesting to me. That I think is a mark of a good leader.
I love it. So everyone out there listening, this is such a treat. Radha, I'd love, for any newbies out there, for you to take us through what Daybreaker is, but really like what your reasoning and motivation was behind Daybreaker and why you're so committed to the movement. 10-year anniversary is no easy feat. And just like, what's your why behind it?
So my why ultimately is that community is the most important thing we can focus on right now as a human species, as a race. Like, everyone quit your jobs and start building community. Like, go and just do this work, full stop. So we need to end the pandemic of loneliness. I think that is and we have to do it in a way that's not pathologizing our loneliness, but actually makes it fun and playful and exciting and magnetizing. And so dance, to me, is the most healing, celebratory technology. It's a technology that exists on the planet, and for the human species to tap into. It's been the technology that the Australopithecus, sort of pre-Homo sapiens have been employing as a way to connect with one another. It's dancing around a fire, it's beating their chest, it's roaring, in movement, it's wiggling their bodies, and it's in these opportunities of dance and celebration and moving in collective unison to the beat of music, that collective effervescence, that flow state that we literally sort of slide into as a community. Imagine 500 people on the dance floor moving together in unison. What is that doing for the field? What is that doing for the human that is in that field? How is that healing them? How is that allowing them to see other people's joy now seeping into their system to invite more joy into them? How is that alchemizing and composting their pain, right, in that circle, right? So that they can then step out of that dance circle anew, right, emptied, to refill again with new, more positive states of being. So dance, collective dance in particular, is the most transcendent and most healing and most celebratory and most uniting technology that exists on the planet. And yet we've bastardized it with alcohol and drugs and nightlife and all the other shit that goes along with it, so that we have now become codependent between dancing and being fucked up, you know? And so Daybreaker, the concept for Daybreaker and my why is, let's break the codependence between having fun, right? And dancing and substances. And let's remember and remind ourselves that our self-expression and moving in unison, that's the drug. That's the euphoric feeling that we're feeling. They call that the contact high. Studies have shown, like when you're at a concert and you're like shoulder to shoulder with someone, it's not that you're drinking beers, right? That makes you feel high. It's not that you're drunk. You're actually drunk on the contact. It's the oxytocin. It's a happy neurochemical in your brain that when you touch one another, it releases these happy hormones. So it's the contact high that you're getting from moving in unison, and the dopamine, which is another happy neurochemical you're getting from listening to music, right? The serotonin you're getting from feeling you're part of something bigger than yourself, and the endorphins you're getting. These are all your four happy neurochemicals you're getting from moving your body and sweating and dancing and being in the celebratory space. And so that dose, I call it your dose, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins, if you can believe it, spells out the word dose. You know, it's all there on the dance floor, especially the substance-free dance floor. And I'm not a sober person. I've shared just this on this podcast. I do my fair share of, quarterly psychedelic, just psychonaut experiences. I don't drink alcohol. I'm absolutely zero on alcohol. I think alcohol can be, it doesn't work with my body. And I don't know that it's actually helpful for the human body either. But that's the dose. Like when you get that dose on the dance floor, sober in community, I literally can't think of a more important movement to support and continue proliferating. And I want to get to 1 billion people dancing sober, for themselves, for each other, for the planet, for the ecosystem, for the field, right? So I really feel like that's our next kind of big hope and opportunity, is let's get 1 billion people dancing sober in celebration of themselves and life.
Incredible. Let's do it. Amazing. If you listen this far, we got links in the description to check out Daybreaker Peace Tour, all the stops on that, as well as the book Belong. You can stay up to date on everything Radha's got going on, her socials, her website, with a bunch of good links. Radha, this has been so awesome. Round of applause for you. Thank you so much for taking the time and joining me here.
Good to be here, Cam. Thanks for having me.